Okay, we're recording. I'm going to start over again. Cisco Kevin here. Welcome and thank you for everybody that's tuning in. And for those of you that will be watching this webinar link, we are so excited that you chose to. I could not be more excited to have Colleen McClellan on this call today. I talk about it quite regularly outside of these calls and with my peers, and just what an honor it is to work beside such talent or with such talented people. Colleen, again, I just wanted to go through your 19 years of experience in marketing, insights and innovation, retail, food service. So just a really well-balanced look at it. And I mean, as you're going to see today, a lot of it's becoming blurred. Throughout her career, she's also worked to translate trends, insights into profitable actions. And that's another important thing I want to focus on today. The beauty of this content isn't that she's got amazing data, but she shows how it all connects. Also, Colleen is the director at Data Essential, a certified sommelier. Maybe I'll get her to say what WSET 2 stands for. I don't know if that's on the sommelier piece. She also holds an MBA in international business, MS in managing information systems, and a Bachelor of Science in neurobiology and physiology. This is just a very outstanding bio. I know you're like, whoa, no, don't say that. Anyways, so before I hand it over to her, because man, I can't wait to get this content going for you. And as I said, for those of you that maybe saw in our post locally, we've become kind of data geeks around here, and I don't mean that word geek as a negative term. And I just can't wait to share this with you. Your minds will be spinning. We'll try to get some questions in today. However, again, remember that there are teams like our business resource team, myself, a consultant, and some culinarians at most of the Cisco buildings in Canada, throughout North America. We've got some great chaps out in Ireland, and we're coming around the globe now. So without further ado, I want to hand it over to Colleen. Welcome, Colleen.
Hi, thank you. I'm so thrilled to be with all of you today. I've never done Webinar Wednesday, so this is my first, so I hope you bear with me. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor for this week's webinar, which is Unilever. They've got some incredible new, very on-trend, clean label sauces that you see pictured here at the bottom of the screen. So please shout out to Cisco Kevin if you've got any questions about the new products that are coming on the market. So with that, let's jump right in. All right. So at Data Central, for those of you who are not familiar with us, we have two halves of our organization. One is all complete custom research in food and beverage with operators and consumers. And the other half is more market intelligence and what we call trend spotting. And they write a whole lot of editorials. And so I want to give my team a little bit of a shout out who helps me garner this type of information outside of our syndicated data sets. So that brings me to share with you today a little bit about the changing demography that we're facing, how it's impacting our cuisines that we see evolve, and then connect those dots a little bit to the great ages of health and wellness, and where we believe we're all headed here very soon, which is the age of personalization. I hope some of you will walk away today with a little inspiration and not nearly be as terrified as what personalization can actually mean. But needless to say, we'll hold your hand and get you through it anyhow. So let's kick off looking at the demographics today by generation. So take a look at boomers. If we think about the census, for example, and we ask people to self-identify, or how they self-identify, I guess more importantly, about 28% of the population of boomers self-identifies multicultural, right? We don't really care necessarily how they, put themselves into a bucket, but just that they consider themselves to be multicultural. So then we go, okay, well, what's the next generation look like? We notice that we see about a 10-point bump. When we take a look at the youngest generations, the millennials and then Gen Z, you'll take note that we're almost at half the population of these being multicultural. And what that really means is, think about if you have kids or you know people who do, and you think about your childhood and what folks look like around you in school, maybe your college roommate, maybe the people you play with on the football or soccer team, right? The chances today that our youngest generations are invited over for supper and it's not going to be exactly what their mom and dad serves at home, it's pretty great, which means that they're exposed to foods and flavor profiles and textures at a much more rapid pace today than, say, the boomers were when they were kids. And so I'll just show you this. Nat Geo did this incredible body of work, a little bit of research, facial recognition, took a look at the demography and said, what could our population actually look like when our younger generations start to have kids, given the multicultural aspects? And I think what you'll notice with the software-generated faces is that it's very difficult to put them into a particular box and identify maybe what their heritage is or maybe what cuisine they grew up eating. I just go, they're really awesome-looking people, so that's cool. But they probably just eat a very, very diverse background. We can no longer really just look at someone and predict they grew up eating meatloaf versus, say, sushi. Chances are they've been exposed to a lot of different things. And that does impact the way we think about and crave food based on what we're exposed to. So we, custom work, went out, spoke to consumers, and we intentionally did not identify what is American food. I mean, let's be clear, Americans really have not invented any food other than twisting lots of food, right? But a whole lot of consumers walk around and assume pizza, burgers, and fries came from North America. And we know that that's not culinary true, right? That's not a point of truth. So we ask consumers then, just in general, how interested are you in consuming American food? And you'll notice that the numbers are sort of irrelevant. It's the downward trend of the line by generation. So boomers, most likely, Zs, less likely. Well, what if I did that with Korean food, right? You start to notice that there's an inverse direction of that line. And what you can also take a note of is the percentage of these, for example, who are interested in Vietnamese food. We know that there's not been that significant of a population list in Vietnamese in North America to generate all of that demand, which means we know that it is multicultural foods, right, are being of interest to our younger generations at a greater pace than our more mature generations. And so the same with Indian cuisine. So what that leads us to is understanding the fact that once boomers back in the day were raising their kids and they had, say, Pizza Friday, they may have had a Taco Tuesday, hard shell style. They may have had, Chinese takeout Thursday, right? Like each night of the week was sort of allocated to a cuisine, and more specifically, some variant of the cuisine, nothing necessarily authentic. So today's culture, today's families, when they go out to make dinner purchase, they don't really think any longer in terms of pure ethnic food, and I'm going to go out for Chinese takeout. What they are saying is that I'm going to go out for some really delicious food and I'm going to fulfill a craving. So instead of thinking about cuisines, they talk in terms of the food or dish themselves. So for example, I don't go out for Mexican. I'm going to go out for tacos. I'm not saying I'm going out for Japanese. I say I'm going to go out for sushi, or I'm going to go out for ramen. I now am in the mindset of just craving the texture, taste, and flavors of hero dishes. And this really was an intersection of both the generational changes, the multicultural piece of that, and their early exposure, as well as an economic change that occurred and a crash in the market. Loans were really difficult to get. So culinary artists that come either out of school or just enter the game, they couldn't get loans to start their businesses at brick and mortar. Real estate was expensive, so they invested in a food truck, tiny menu, and just started figuring it out. Well, oftentimes what they did was they focused on one single item, a dish, and then blew it out 30 different ways. So we started teaching consumers to think in terms of dishes beyond, say, a cuisine type. So I think it's pretty awesome to see how we've gone from burritos and grilled cheese, empanadas, arancini trucks, arepas, hummus, right, bibimbap, naan or roti wraps, right? This, in some cases, is even also called a burrito, poke bowls. And you'll notice that they're all portable, which has also had an impact on the fact that everybody in the swimming pool has to get along. It is the most perfect form of culinary creation of having one bite that gets it done. So everything melds together, blends together, the textures complement each other, flavors offset, acid and bitter. So it's everything that culinary training has taught you to do, but in one single portable handheld or bowl. So it's almost a death of the three sides, meat and three. We see now meat being used as a garnish, really high quality protein, but used in very small portions. I think it's pretty fascinating to have observed this. Sure, we need convenience and we're on the go, but a lot of this had to do with that generational change and the economic conditions the food truck movement. And then they got loans and they took their food truck and opened a brick and mortar. So now you've got a brick and mortar restaurant that are doing single dish focuses and mashing different flavors together from multiple cuisines. And you don't see consumers necessarily walking in and being shocked. In fact, what was that shift in '08, come fast forward to 18, global influences have expanded from flavors to dishes.
Still there,
Colleen? Think about 2000.
Oh,
yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah,
okay.
Can now. Yeah,
Sorry.
We just lost you there for a second. We lost your slides too.
Are you seeing them now?
Nope, still just seeing your face.
Oh, okay. So let's not do that.
Just a second here. Come on. Are they showing on your screen there, Colleen?
Yep. And I can see. Let's try this. Sorry, team. Then I hit share again. See what happens.
Come on.
Can you see?
Just seeing your name right now. Come on. Why?
I see you guys.
I know, I'm just trying to see why I'm not seeing your slides.
It says stop sharing, but I can try to stop and reshare.
Come on now. Rotate. I don't know what happened there.
I don't either. It was strange.
Jamie co-host. I've got you. See, I'm currently the host, but I don't know why I can't. I don't want to do share. You've got share at the bottom, right?
Yep, it says sharing or stop share. I stopped sharing. Now I'm gonna share again.
Come on. Colleen has started screen sharing. Double click to enter full screen mode. Why are you not Oh, there we go. Slides are back up. Okay.
All right. Sorry, team. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we're back up and running. So where we were was just noticing that what was done by like the Kogi barbecue, the Korean barbecue in a taco format in '08 was considered daring and new. What we've seen happen is we look and plot our trends on a menu adoption cycle, starting with inception, ending in ubiquity. Lots of stuff happens in the first two stages. We call that excitement. Whereas when you get into more common placement of items, that's where your volume is. Well, there's still a 70% death rate of all items in inception. So safe experimentation is where we focus our energy. So how do we consider new and interesting global ingredients and consider a safe way to experiment is we choose platforms in ubiquity like sandwiches, pizzas, tacos, burritos, and mash them up with items from adoption. And we call this ubiquity. And we have now seen what was once new and daring back in 2008 to speed forward to 2019 is a redefinition of what is considered modern North American food or cuisine fueled by safe experimentation. A good example is you've got a taco here. It looks pretty standard. You got jalapeno cilantro, you've got pork belly, you've got all sort of Korean style flavors in a taco. And now this has just become accepted and expected. We could see it on poutine is another great example, both in Montreal and also in the States, but you got beef confit, right? So that's unique. You've got onion, but of course you still have the classic fry. We could see it with just say Thai fried calamari that you might expect in more of a, maybe it's Italian, maybe it's Thai, but maybe it's just a varied menu that's able to get away with it. And we proved this out was we have a tool called Scores that tracks new items and LTOs in the US and Canada every month. And we see here, there's carbonara on an eggs Benedict, right? We can look at citrus adobo on pizza, kung pao and monkfish, right? Even Boston pizza here, we've got a Cuban style power bowl, carnitas on a pizza, right? Safe experimentation. So when we think about how do we leverage it, I think we have great examples of what is new American cuisine. It used to be called American cuisine. It used to be linked to French, Nouveau, farm to table, California. We're saying it's all about ubiquity. It's all about taking new and interesting, globally inspired ingredients and flavor profiles and putting them into ubiquitous dishes and platforms that everyone knows and loves. And so a complete regaming of what was once called New American. So ubiquity. And at that point, I know we took a bit of a pause, but I would love to pause again. And Kevin, do we have any questions?
For me, I don't have any questions popping up, and that's maybe my fault for not asking, although I feel like the content that you're giving, I think it just the gears are turning. A couple of things that stood out to me. What I want to just to kind of dovetail into what we do with our BR, our business resource teams here at Cisco, that slide of all the food trucks and those big lineups. And I find it so interesting because everybody's like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. What would be a more interesting slide or statistic would be a time lapse of a day, and to see which truck put through more people, made more money. And so I just want to keep people thinking about, like, you know, it's finding that balance of everything you're talking about today is also finding that sweet spot of you have a business to run and you got to make money. So there's a fine balance of everything you're talking about here, right?
Yeah, so that data set that I showed pictures of, we've got over 11 million individual consumer ratings, right? Over 23,000 just in one market of dishes. And we're able to actually look at what do consumers want to buy and what do they think is unique so that you are differentiated. Because I think it's really important when you think about the principle of safe experimentation and menuing, you don't lead with the funkiest ingredient in the title of the dish and you'll never get a consumer to read past it. You know, if you ask me if there was a French fry truck probably in that rally, the fry truck was probably the first to sell out. People love fries and they don't like making them at home. So finding a sweet spot, being loyal to your brand, living up to your brand, but not being afraid to dabble in something that's just the right flavor combination for you if you're not, quote, an authentic ethnic cuisine type. It's okay. Consumers really are all right with you experimenting and playing as long as what you put in their mouth is craveable and delicious. The way you get them to try something new is call it something familiar, right? And link it to a familiar dish platform that they know. Let's be clear, bowls and the poke bowl or the crispy rice bowl or the burrito bowl, it is nothing more than a casserole rebranded, right? So the casserole of the old days coming back into individual serving sizes, right? And well, maybe served cold or melty and hot. But I think it's not really new, right? It's not really new. But what is new is like, hey, maybe we deconstruct sushi and dump it on top and lets you do what? Personalize it. Lets you kind of build and add, you know, preset fixed list of items, but mix and match your own favorites together. So I think there are ways to get our guests into the mix, but we got to be really smart about it. We still have to stay true to our brand.
Okay, let's move ahead.
Cool. Health. This is a really tricky topic. To go forward, we have to look backwards. So 1980s, I always like to refer to this as the era of Snackwell cookies because I personally grew up in a family at a time where Weight Watchers, everybody was doing it. You could eat a whole box of those Snackwells. It was like 2 points or something. And, you know, it was a box of sugar, but we didn't care because it was somehow low points and we were on a weight control system, right? That was from the 1980s through 2000, 2005. You heard a lot of demonization of fat, sugar, salt. Then it was fat, then it was sugar, then it was salt again, right? That's still, you know, it really carried around and created a lot of negative emotion for a lot of consumers at that time. So then we started to see a shift around early 2000s to what we call feel-good terms, local, organic, natural, sustainable. It's a whole bunch of terminology and language that no one can ever define. Everyone's heard of it, and yet about a third of people are willing to pay more for it. They really don't know what it means, right? Ultimately, it just was something they felt good about. Whether it was good because it was what they were putting in their kids' bodies, whether it was good because it supported local people in their community. Where we are headed and what's already started to take shape is really consumers giving up on the chaotic, I don't really understand what any of this is. We now have even more terms to memorize, I don't know what they are, is all about me, right? Tell me the functional benefit, or the most brilliant is the perceived benefit that the consumer in their own mind derives by seeing a set of superfood hero ingredients. So you say blueberries and almonds and consumers go, oh, I heard they're good for your brain. Oh, I heard they have these antioxidant things. I don't know what they do, but they're supposed to be really good for you. So if I have to choose between apple and blueberry, I go blueberry because no one told me if apples are good for something yet. Maybe fiber, I don't know. So functional foods is something that we're experiencing right now, certainly for performance, positive nutrition, less about statements of claim, more about what it's going to do for you. Help me solve a problem. It's even crossing over to, I used to just eat good food, right, to feel better. And now we see consumers gravitating towards eating to look better, even in the beauty space. And a good example of that is the recent, again, perceived benefits of calling out a hero ingredient like collagen. We see it in retail, in bars. We see it in drinkable bone broth. And we also see it even in restaurants now, calling out your poolside fit smoothie, but it's got, you know, nobody knows calories, sugar, right? But it's got collagen in it, right? And so a consumer seeing that as a way to hydrate away from my skin. Notice they're not really making academic or say medical claims. They're just sort of guiding the consumer by calling out the hero foods that are in it. So we thought we would be, you know, keep up on the pace is to examine among consumers. So then what are those top functional benefits? What are they truly trying, what's the problem they're trying to solve for? And regardless, we look at it at a total population, almost everybody at the top three is heart health, needing more energy, still trying to control weight, but trying to do it from a nutritional positive perspective versus alienating and cutting out. You'll see very personalized needs fall more to the bottom of the list, like mood enhancement or allergy relief. So I think everybody is in a position to think about energy, heart, and weight management. And what's typically known is that consumers don't typically want health when they're away from home, right? We always hear they want to treat themselves. Well, yeah, they do, but that smoothie I showed you is still perceived as a treat, but with a functional benefit. So 78% of consumers are saying we want to see more functional benefits in foods and beverages away from home. And a great example is a chain on the market you've probably heard of, True Food Kitchen. Check out how they're doing it. We zoom in just on their refreshment area, like their beverages. We can zoom in, sparkling antioxidant tea. No consumer has any idea what an antioxidant tea is, but there is some perceived value of that functional benefit. Nor do they understand what an adaptogenic tea is. The medicine man. Here, it's got sea buckthorns. No consumer knows what that is. There's a set of perceptions, though, that if they've heard of it, this is all the things they believe it can do for them, which is, you know, cure a lot of stuff. So then we said, well, what if we were to look at it generationally? Are there hero ingredients and the perceived benefit? Does that skew by generation? Like, do boomers believe certain foods have benefits that, say, younger generations disagree with, or just have a different set of foods they think are magical? Well, it turns out that it is pretty true. Pulses, olive oil, grapes. These are things that boomers have, instantly seeing those terms to them, have some functional benefit. Millennials and Zs, on the other hand, see things like fermented veggies, cannabis, and activated charcoal, which if you take nothing away from this call, I am not recommending anybody run out and start doing activated charcoal. It can very much interfere with family planning methodology, if you know what I mean, and it also causes a detox of digestion. Also don't recognize that as a hero food on a menu that makes anybody who then has to stand in line for a single shooter restroom in a happy place. So let's skip that for now, but we understand why maybe there's a perceived benefit. So besides functional, how do consumers really want to start eating tomorrow? And not 5 years, but like literally Thursday, tomorrow. And the biggest shift that we've seen is a consumer, and again, these are actually defined explicitly as to what they are. This was not about them having to know what a definition of vegetarian means or pescatarian. So we crisply defined it. We shorten it for the slide. What's grown is really the flexitarian. We've yet to actually see any indication that the general population of vegans currently, vegetarians, all, you know, they hover around 5 to 7% of the population. There's only like 2% of people who wish tomorrow they could be a vegan, right? Way more people interested in flexing. And we think that's because they want to have choice. They want to feel better about their decisions, right? Because they want functional benefits, and they believe plants, inherently fruits and vegetables, have superhero properties, and they should just be eating more fruit and veg. So that has led us to a very heavy industry game-changing moments around plant-based foods. So I think it's important we keep in mind only 2% of of new consumers, right, to be in vegan, right? Only 2% really want to tomorrow have that lifestyle, but 23% of consumers are actually favorable to kind of sometimes doing vegan. Like I might have a vegan snack or breakfast and then had a tomahawk steak on Friday. I felt pretty good about my choice on Tuesday, and I felt like I earned my tomahawk steak on Friday, right? And that's so much more valuable for us to understand. I do believe vegan positioning can be extremely helpful simply because there are vegans who do need to know what's safe to eat, just like any other allergy, for example. But vegan foods are not just for vegans anymore. And a great example here is a restaurant chain started up in New York, and this is their website, and they're a vegan restaurant, and you do not see any aspect of that called out. What you see is really delicious food being marketed as delicious food. And oh yeah, by the way, it's made from fruits and veg, right? I think that's more where we're headed. When we ask consumers why they want to eat less meat, and this is really critically important because there's a lot of perception, there's a lot of media coverage out there about the planet, animal welfare, right? I think for vegans who are staunchly living that lifestyle, it's not a diet, it's not a fad. For them, it's a lifestyle and it's a set of personal values. Majority of the population who's trying to increase fruit and veg and decrease, say, more specifically red meat, it's all about their own personal health, managing and avoiding diseases as they age and trying to maintain weight or lose weight. So it's a lot more about me than it is necessarily about my family or some outer motivation. So with that, have we garnered any questions, Kevin?
Oh, a few kind of things. First of all, one came up at the end of the first when we kind of started, which I thought dovetailed into what you just talked about. And Margaret made a comment about as people age and spices, different ingredients, and then also now this like acid reflux, heartburn on the rise, and those sorts of things, and how. And I wanted to ask this question of you as a sommelier because you have a very in-tuned palate. Our palate obviously changes as we mature, right? So is there a way to tie all those thoughts together?
Sadly, a lot has to do with actually our sense of smell. A couple of things. A lot of what we taste, right, is really sense of smell. The 5 basic tastes on our tongue as we age. It seems that the one taste bud that tends to erode less quickly is our sweet taste bud. So you will watch seniors and more mature adults who used to drink black coffee start adding cream or sugar to their coffee in long-term care. And their excuse is typically like, I don't know what they do to the coffee anymore these days. It's not what it used to be. And it's not actually the coffee that's changed. It's their palate that's changed. Like physically taste buds and the percent of coverage is shifted on their tongue. This is also heavily compromised by anyone who's been on specific medications for a long period of time, increasing the bitter sensitivity, changing how salt is perceived, and compromising their ability to smell nuance and flavor. So definitely as we age, which is super depressing to me, I live through my nose. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to me. Like, I don't know. Like, what, am I going to start taking Cabernet and adding in a pack of sugar to just be able to get through my glass of wine? Did you know I'm not giving up my glass of wine? I don't know. It's tricky. I do think that we know you can train your taste buds to say, accept less salt in I don't remember now, it's like 2-3 week period. You can train what you perceive to be salty by decreasing your salt intake. And then try something that used to be not salty to you will now taste. So your buds they regenerate, they can recalibrate. So this is how much that I personally am aware of. I don't know how much, because sweet is less to erode. It's young kids like sweet, and the older we get, we tend to start leaning sweet tooth also, even when we weren't at, majority of our time. But I'm hoping that technology will catch up and maybe there'll be a way to prevent maybe some of that to occur. But I think you're right that, turmeric, for example, is not going to be something that if you've got bitter issues, you're a super taster, you have more bitter taste buds. And we notice this with functional juice, cold pressed juice, and smoothies. You watch the ones that perform the best, the ones that talk about all bitter and have all like Swiss chard in it and lemon and ginger and turmeric. You're like, man, I hope there's honey in that. There needs to be something to offset the bitter. In the alcohol space, we are undergoing a massive collision of shifting from the battle, I call it the bitter sour battle, IPA and beer, we have been on this bitter pathway for so long, like how much more grapefruit pith can anybody tolerate in their beverage, to now going into sour and Belgian funk and, you know, natural wines made with wild yeast. And so we're going into like the pucker mode. And the question is like the battle of bitter or the battle of sour, like the Aperol Spritz is going to come and take over for, are we going to actually see more sour tart be the trend? And at the end of the day, bottom line is sweet will always win out because, you know, we're not overcoming our biological urge to say bitter and sourness might kill us. So.
What about just to touch on the healthcare piece of that about like heartburn, acid reflux, and then also some of the, and I'm finding, I don't even want to just say in the healthcare segment, I want to say like, I'm finding this at home with my family as they age, right? My parents are in their 70s now, and they make up their mind about something, some type of ethnicity of food before they even try, oh, that's very spicy food. They're like that sort of thing.
I can't handle it.
Right?
Yeah.
So I just was curious what your thoughts were.
I think that's true. Yeah, no, I think it's a very real condition, right? And I think obesity and movement and aging and the meds that we take all contribute to acid reflux, even a little bit of genetics. And so I think where this conversation today is going to take us is to personalization. And we'll circle back on that point then, because I think what's your trigger food for acid reflux, right? Versus say someone else's. For some, it's tomato sauce is a great example, high acid food. For other, it's heat. Right, chili and things that burn in a temperature, actual pain reflex way. And so I do think that narrows the diet. I also think that things that were your favorite and now you can't consume is even to some extreme conditions led to depression, right? And so I think where we're headed is more personalized diets that let people know what their hero foods are, what to avoid, and how to double down on their hero foods or preparations, which, by the way, if you're in healthcare, long-term care, or you're in a casual dining environment, I know, Kevin, we've talked about this. When we get to the end of this talk today, it's some scary stuff if you have to figure out a way to optimize a menu for 1,000 covers because it's 1,000 different people coming in tonight. Tough.
So two other things I want to touch on. First, a shout out to Unilever, Hellmann's on because you talk about the trend of clean decks, cleaning up their ingredient lists. What I found was missing, and another shout out to Unilever and Knorr and Hellmann's, however, is they didn't say much about carbon footprint and how we're leaving the world as far as decisions being made on menus through that past. I know it doesn't necessarily open up a powder keg, but it is interesting because the move towards vegan and plant-based actually supports that quite a bit. And it just was interesting that wasn't in any of the data, even though you hear it really loudly right now.
So we do see it, but it is a primary driver for people who are interested in eating, let's say, cellular agriculture. So lab-grown meat. Right? Things that are made by cells in labs. The primary interest of consumers who are interested in eating that is because they want to save, say, the planet or be more sustainable or animal rights, for example. It's not that they don't exist as motivators for cutting back on meat, as in the flexitarian. It's just that a bulk of consumers, those as their drivers, come very far down the list, like single digit, like the 10th reason why I do it. Because frankly, we as individuals and humans are maybe somewhat terrible in our very individualistic, especially in North America, more individually focused than communally focused. I do think that that's because food is emotional and and beverage, right? It's very emotional to us as creatures. So it's much easier for us to save the planet by making a different car choice or by making a different package choice than it is for us to say, I'm going to cut out, give up. I mean, let's be clear, for our own health and wellness and looking beautiful, we could all diet, but the word diet begins with the word die because it is suffering and we don't like doing it, right? So I think we're stressed out. I think that all of that leads to us, emotionally eating is a real thing. And why? Because some people show their love and their family by cooking and sharing meals together. So I do think that it's not that these people are saying, I don't care about the planet, that I don't want to pick up trash if I see it and I don't want to recycle. Of course, it's just that isn't necessarily why I'm cutting back meat or trying to cut back meat. It's got like my own personal barriers I can't quite overcome.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. Great dialogue. Love it.
Cool. So then, given that whole notion of plant-based, I'm not suggesting that it's going away, but when we look at trends and forecasting, we know that one trend tends to lead us to a counter movement or a counter trend. And so one of the things that I thought have been really fascinating to observe is something I call like meat with benefits, right? Cell ag, we just talked about that. We also noticed that these are the following terms, like free range is up, cage-free is up, grass-fed, heritage, Wagyu is up. This is being driven, we're seeing now even a space, a market space being created to sell direct from farm to consumer, so that, because on menus, it's very difficult to tell the food story of every individual ingredient in a description, right? First, we got to get you to read the title. Then we got to read you to get second to that to the description, if there is one. And in that, we have to say if there's allergens or some sort of certification, and then we have to describe what could be polarizing, like spicy heat, let alone then describe that this carrot was raised in a loving fashion and that our animals, like our beef, was fed grain half the time, and then it was grass finished, and it was massaged right before we got them to your plate. So you're seeing now a counter movement to say, you know what, I've got a story to tell. We are responsibly raising animals. And so Crowd Cow is a great example of this, where they crowdsource the whole animal sale. And they tell you, hey, we shop by zip code, we dry ice ship it to your place, and you can order it by cut, by part, or by package. So you can order 3 different types of New York strip. One's been fed grain 100%, one may be all grass-fed, one's a combination. And now you can set up a tasting experience at your house, invite your friends over. Why? Well, they just know that there's enough consumers out there that are compelled by what is perceived premium. It's perceived as healthful because it comes directly to me, farm to source. I know what it ate. I know how it was slaughtered. I got to pick the cuts that I wanted. So there's so much about food with a story. And we're not even just seeing that with red meat, but even Fulton Fish Market out of New York has got a direct to consumer. You can click on any one of these species and it tells you where it's come from, if it was farm raised, how it was treated, where it was caught, how it was caught. And so a whole lot more time and attention to detail to tell the story of the supply chain, which does create transparency. So though consumers love red meat, they do want to be healthy. They're still willing to stand in lines like this in the hope that they could land with a tray of food like this, even though they could wait and it be completely sold out. Austin, Texas barbecue plate. You'll notice there are vegetables on this plate. Most people won't recognize that there are things in the upper left and bottom right that are vegetables. It's not just meat. At the end of the day, plant-based only really works if it's craveable, right? Because there's really only single-digit % that are in the lifestyle for other ethical and value system-based eating, right? Everyone else is just trying to feed a craving, if you will. So with that, where are we headed with health, as we were just discussing, is really 4.0 already started now. This is not necessarily going to be 2025 before it hits. Already started is true personalization of diet. Which I think is, quite frankly, a bit of a nightmare for away from home feeding. It's also a nightmare for cooking at home if you're a spouse with kids and you have to make 15 different meals a day. We know that's not practical. But so we don't know exactly how it'll end up, but we do know personalization is on the rise. So if you've not heard, this is just one company, one example. It was a startup in the Bay Area in California who's called Habit. And not to be offensive, but they send you this little bottle. It looks adorably packaged until you actually try to drink it. And it's this thousands of calories of fat, basically, and sugar. And it's like really tough to choke down. But, Saturday morning, you got nothing else to do. You're going to pour yourself a glass. You're going to drink this thing down. And because you can, you're going to get this box with a whole lot of little finger pricking devices where you're going to take tons of physical measurements of yourself over the course of hours of digesting it, with the hope to then get back in return, hey, that was a rough experience, but now we're going to tell you, this is what your average plate makeup should look like. These are your hero foods. These are the things you should avoid, and here's why. This is how to be your best, most optimal self, whether that be for energy, sleep, weight management, right, strength training. So if this is truly where we are headed, and we see big companies already making investments, Nestle in Japan bought genetic testing kits. They already have a nutraceutical kind of arm or nutritional arm to their company. They're not waiting around, right? So people see that we once were just mesmerized by the fact that they would butcher your name, but still try to spell it on the side of your coffee cup at Starbucks. but be able to shout out your name for your coffee being ready. That was personalized. And then you can make it skinny, extra foam, extra light. That's really customization. Imagine trying to execute that next tier by saying, you know, my DNA says I process hot foods better between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. And so I can't eat, you know, hot foods the rest of the day. Can you make my dish cold because I need to have it room temperature? I need my water, no ice, because I can't drink cold drinks at a certain time of day. It's interesting. It's compelling. It's something to think about. It's not something to run out and react upon, but start thinking about what does it do to our infrastructure and supply chain if we were all being pressed to say, especially in the healthcare space, long-term care, how would we start to manage, you know, how will we start to think about design of menu and description? How much flexibility do we have for, you know, personalizing a meal? And so just a few thoughts to leave you with today, and then open it up back for questions. You know, demographics are shifting, right? And this allows all concepts, you know, to move forward with the notion of perfect authenticity is not needed. Safe experimentation that can align to your restaurant's brand opens the doors for innovation. Healthy 3.0 is here now with really no end in sight for this movement around functional. I say if you're going to get into it, it's super easy to do as it relates to calling out heroes like whole grains, almonds and blueberries, right? All sorts of fruits and vegetables have heroic benefits. So are we leading with a fruit and veg design and then supporting it with grains and high quality proteins around it versus leading with the protein and then building around that? That may be a way for almost anybody to be in the space and drive crave and yet a functional benefit. It's another way to also help us as humans walking around get more fruits and veg in our diet. We struggle to do it and we articulate that we want to do it, but that portability really does help quite a bit. It's why we have people interested in cauliflower pizza crust that aren't gluten-free. It's because they view it as, well, that's one way for me to eat my pizza and get more fruit or veg in my diet, and I didn't have to sacrifice to do it. Plant-based can work in almost any venue type and any menu type, as long as you focus on telling the story. And when I say driving drool, right, make me mouth water, make me crave it. And you guys as culinary professionals do this every single day with every dish you touch. So this is not a challenge for you. Healthy 4.0 is a little scary. It is coming rapidly. This is not 20, 30 years out. It's coming. The question is, you know, how do we help meet the goals that each individual is setting for themselves? How do we prepare for that? And maybe it's just deciding we'll play here and we won't play here, and that's okay. Or we play here in-house, but maybe we play some different fashion in delivery and takeaway, or what we bring to your home. Maybe we have a commissary arm that allows us to be more nimble here, but you come to do a sit-down experience and it's more, you know, less personal, more curated. I don't think we know what we don't know yet, but we certainly are monitoring to see how technology advances, robotics, for example, automation, to help us tackle such a lofty goal. So any additional questions?
Wow. I just want to say, wow, this is just like, I can't wait to get my hands on this and just start digging into parts of it. Cause they're like, we could have an hour on every area, right? One question that came up after we finished the previous section was also about the upcoming trends, intermittent fasting, and then disease management and weight loss. And then also, I wanted to throw this one in there. Margaret didn't ask it, but keto, right?
Yeah. Here's my advice. Don't do it. Diets, I've been tracking them for decades, right? I'll tell you what they do. This and then this. Because guess what? Then something else comes like here and it goes back down again. I think Weight Watchers might be one of the staple diet lifestyles, because that's how it is. It's less about dieting and more about educating you to make better choices. I think Healthy 4.0 is going to leapfrog these diets because, right, it's diet. It's a one-size-fits-all approach. You have plenty of people on the keto diet going, I don't understand. My neighbor did it and lost 30 pounds in the first month and I'm still struggling, right? It's because it's not everybody's body functions the same. I think we're just now really truly starting to understand that. So yes, I think a safer play is to talk about functional benefits. Say, this is made with high quality protein. People think protein, satiety, won't be hungry, less snacking, good weight management. They're connecting their own dots. right? So yeah, they're a small percentage, and I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I've got 2018 figures that will tell you the percent who are aware of like keto, intermittent fasting, South Beach. We have a whole list, right? Here's the percent aware of it. Here's the percent they're actually interested in trying it. Here's the percent on it. And here's the percent who've definitely tried it and no longer doing it. And the no longer doing it is definitely bigger than those currently doing it. And the no longer doing it is bigger than those interested in it. Everybody's aware of it. So it's one size fits all, especially if there's a ton of sacrifice or financial investment that you can do this diet only if you buy our food. Not a lot of success. So a buzz for sure. We would call it a fad. We would say, yes, there are certain brands and certain venues who can get in on it and should, because they can capitalize. Great place, your fitness center. Your fitness center wants to have ready to drink beverages that target that, they will probably make money. If a casual dining place or a fast casual bakery tries to get in and have keto muffins, like, okay, you might sell a few, right? You might have a trickle halo effect of people going, oh, like oat bran raisin muffin, keto muffin, carrot cake muffin with frosting. You know, half the people will say, I should do this, but I still go with frosting. The others will go, I don't know what is a keto, and now I have to have a dialogue I didn't want to have. And the others are going, oats are good. They're supposed to do something for heart health. I'll buy an oat bran muffin because it's supposed to do something for my heart. Can't prove it's doing anything for my heart, but man, it was better than making a chocolate chip pancake decision. So it's all within the context of the choice and the universe in which we're looking at in the moment we make a food and beverage drink decision. So it's not don't do anything with it. I just think there's safer, less risky ways to play by focusing on multiple servings of fruit and veg, or lead in a veg forward way, or talk about the quality of the protein, talk about the quantity of the protein, and allow that consumer to make their choices. The more you can create choice in a menu structure, the more a consumer can navigate and find their own personal path. Talking about healthy fats by just saying it's made with avocado oil or extra virgin olive oil allows the consumer to go down that path on their own, right? I don't think it means everybody needs to have bullet coffee and sticks of butter being served next to the latte making machine, right? It's kind of venue specific, and it's temporary in some way, shape, or form.
I really, I have to say, I really love, you're a very, very great presenter. I love your use of psychology as you mix it into this. And I think something that we're talking about more and more in here, and again, it's a touchy subject, is just that understanding the why, right? You heard that this is a trend, but have you dug into like, I love some of the stats you put up today to say, like, I'm not saying don't serve vegan food. I'm just telling you that likely 2 to 5% of your customers will be vegan, right? I'm not saying don't serve something that's keto, but make sure that it works with other things on your menu. We use the word in here a lot, pivot. You make sure that if you have that you go all in on a concept and you don't have the ability to pivot and it doesn't work, you're screwed, right? And having that nimbleness, right? Like you've been talking about it, and just using the science and the data that's right here in front of us. But we talk about it in our culinary centers so often, and I'll try to do this. There's too many emotional and perceived decisions that are made when it needs to be done more data based, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like, here's how you get into keto. You use the ingredients that you know keto supports, but you design a great tasting bowl, dish, or breakfast item. Guess what? Those that follow keto know what they're looking for. Those that are not on keto just go, that sounds pretty good. Now I get actually bigger lift, bigger share of volume and traffic in my space. And am I accomplishing? All you're doing is focusing on hero ingredients, driving crave, and letting the consumer wrap their own perceive. It's like sea buckthorns. Like, come on. Like, is that going to be the next flavor profile of, like, you know, tarts and pies? Maybe. All I know is that people who are drinking a beverage in it go, oh, I'm going to Google that. Oh, it's supposed to be great for my skin. Well, that can't be bad, right? As long as it doesn't taste terrible. That's like a bonus, because I was going to order a cup of tea anyway. So it's really thinking through, what are those key ingredients that you do well, you can access year round well, or locally? Like, what does your brand stand for? And creating choice that consumers can navigate and find in your menu to meet their needs.
You know what I loved? One of my peers already said this to me today. She was actually with Unilever, and it's interesting because it doesn't even just have to be plant-based with that sentence. You could put a blank there.
That's right.
right? Anything you do only works if it's craveable, right? And people get hung up so often about like, but I'm trying to teach the world to do this. It's like, yeah, but that's not what they're looking. They're not looking to be taught, right? Like, yes, there might be some, but they're looking to be taught while they're eating something craveable, right? They're still going to pick if they've got two choices, basically, right?
To be honest, I've got data that tells me that isn't true, right? Like consumers don't want to be talked to and educated when they're eating their food.
Right.
Right. Even in the wine space, you can ask wine loyalists, like, I only drink red wine. How interested are you in learning about wine and winemaking? And it's like really tiny numbers. They're like, man, just really wanted to drink my red wine. And maybe I'm going to have it with food and maybe I'm not, because why? Just really like wine, right? Like it's really kind of primitive to the extent. And I also think the education, little bits and snippets, it's really about, oh, I saw, because you know where their benefit perceptions are coming from. Friends on social media that said, my doctor said, or my friend said, or my grandmother ate and her cancer went away. So therefore now everybody's walking around snacking on, you know, bananas while hanging upside down because somebody mentioned on social media that that's going to cure something. And it's like, well, we got to have common sense. I don't think it's necessarily our industry space can scream from the rooftops about things. And at the end of the day, we just have to make information in the right channels available for consumers to find what they need. It isn't going to be at the point of sale, not typically. You know, like I come in, I see choice, I go, looks good, going to buy. I need to have something to fill me up. I need something between meals. I got to run the kids somewhere. So everybody's need state, what they need to accomplish, or the job the food is going to accomplish for that consumer, you know, varies by day of week, time of day, household incomes, all those great things. Bottom line is we know everybody gets cravings. Everybody drools in theory. And we want to play on that, right? Because that's what, you know, when we salivate, that makes the brain tell the body we're expecting food, and we get excited about it. And again, there's just a really strong emotional tie to humans and their food. Not everybody, but a good chunk of the population does react that way. So, you know, I think vegan works for lots of other people, not just diehard vegans, but not if it tastes like sawdust. So not if it looks brown. You know, the very original, no offense, first the vegan burger concept that came out in the frozen retail space was beige. And if you put beige food on a beige bun, it's beige. That's a wall color. That's not food, right? So we've come such a long way, right? Whether it's Beyond Meat or Memphis Meats or, you know, Impossible Burgers products, you know, why are they starting to get a lot of attention? It's simply because they look and feel exactly like the things we love to eat. So we really aren't asking consumers to sacrifice a whole lot of anything, which means, would I try something that doesn't require sacrifice? And the answer is, yeah, a lot of people are willing to try things that they look and taste craveable and like the things they love to eat. So.
A question just came up about sharing the data that you had about the people not wanting to be educated or whatever. So if you can, I'll send you an email if you can dig that one up for me, but I would love to see some of those stats. Cause again, I feel like we're finally getting to a point where people have more of an appetite for this. It's not, I'm not telling you, I'm just showing you data that I'm hoping tells you. Yeah.
Yeah, just guides a decision. In some cases, there's validation for a gut instinct, right? If you're running a business, you're in it every day, you see a lot. You have strong observations. Of course, you know what you're doing. But sometimes you see a neighbor's doing something else and you start to question yourself, you know, and I think sometimes data helps you validate, you know, was your instinct spot on or not?
I just want to say that it's just some really great comments about just your passion and your energy, and we're all really enjoying this because it honestly it just feels so natural, and there's one thing to be a talking head and read from the notes, and I do have to say I have to make sure I quantify that. We've had some great talent on these calls that just because you aren't comfortable necessarily reading a PowerPoint doesn't mean you're not great, but you're like all these things, right? It seems that you've got such a long-standing knowledge on this subject, and again, for those people that are on this call that are either from Cisco or have worked with Cisco, like that is our goal, is to teach and share and keep people relevant, keep them in the game. We talked about
Make it easier.
Well, Yeah, and we talked about we've just been talking about like technology a lot lately and how fast the world's moving, and people that are resilient to change, like they're not going to survive in this new infrastructure, right? And just thank you so much for giving us data, because don't get me wrong, people are scared, and I love the data that you used about a time when loans were hard to get and whatever, and it's just like, this is a lot of money. Whatever it is you're doing, people are nervous to make big decisions because it could potentially be make or break, or they've been burned before, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, okay,
Yeah.
I don't have any more questions running. I think people are just eager on, at least what I'm feeling. Sorry if I'm speaking on behalf of anybody here. I think people are just going to be excited to get this data and get this out. Well, here's the deal, right? We've got 80 people today that are participating in this. But if you look at the Cisco network and how we get this out to all our teams now, you're looking at hundreds and if not thousands and thousands of people being influenced by this data. So you're making such a big difference here, not just by the time that we appreciate you sharing with us today, more though in what is going to come from this. So I'm just really looking forward to that, and hopefully talking to you a little bit more, because it's nice to
Cool.
Being a person myself that people feed off of the energy. Sometimes you got one of those days where it's just nice to know that there's some other people out there that are really excited about this subject matter, right? I mean, back to your psychological conversations, I think any of us that are in this business, I mean, there are days where we question, and so do our customers, right? Because it's exhausting and it's crazy, and the stories just sometimes they're not even believable what happens in our industry, right? So
well, I should be honest that my brother is a chef, and I grew up as a kid working in food service, front of house and back of house, and I also worked in manufacturing, and I can remember sitting around tables, big decisions being made, and I at one point just kind of raised my hand and go, operators don't care, right? Like this debate you're having over naming and stuff. You do know the biggest worry is like that the dishwasher could chop his finger off at some point, and they're the chef stepping in to wash dishes, and that if somebody slips because of that happening, and then went down 2 guys, and if my order comes in and somebody forgot to unpack it, it just rotted at the back door, like not okay. So I can appreciate the chaos that is the dance that everyone at food feeding away from home goes through every day, the passion they bring to it, the energy they have, because without them, we would have no places to go and have great food, craveable experiences. So it's a noble position that they have, and I am so thrilled that they continue to delight my palate and senses every day. And so if my little bit of statistics can, help keep somebody in business or just make a little bit of what they have to decide upon every day just a tiny bit easier, then man, it's just cool to be a part of that.
Hey, there was one last question. I've only got 1 minute here. Ken mentioned about Beyond Burger being so popular due to millions of dollars that they're actually spending on marketing. And there's even a stat out there about how much they gave to NW. Any thoughts on that? I read a little bit about the IPO the other day, like just closing thoughts.
No, I mean, I heard the IPOs continue to do well. I know that there's all sorts of snickering about, like, look out Uber, because I guess their IPO wasn't quite as good as they Beyond. I know Impossible just released another round of fundraising just 2 days ago. So certainly lots of people. I think when the notion is, what are they investing in? They're investing in the notion of how can we help either make people or planet healthier by leveraging habits humans already have. You already eat burgers. So if we could transform the way you consume a burger without asking you to sacrifice anything, would that be cool? Now, do they satisfy an individual's nutritional needs for health and wellness and weight management? Maybe not. But is it better to eat, you look at sat, fat, and sodium and all these other things. And, I don't get into those details too deeply. I just know that it makes a lot of sense why people would say, I don't know that this is long-term. Just Eggs has come out. They've done quite well as an alternative to actual chicken eggs. And I say it's about choice, and you're powerhousing against things that humans already like to do. So you're much better to not try to get humans to change who they are. I mean, that's like marriage counseling. You get what you get. Don't try to change them, right? Making habits is really tough. So if you're, making a swap from A to B, but B looks exactly like A, well, man, that's like the first place to start, because we've been for decades trying to get you to do stuff that either didn't look good, taste good, or had to really work hard to go out of your way to get it done. Not going to last, right? So in this case, I'm guessing that's why it's been quite successful.
Okay, round of applause. Colleen, thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
For this, giving us this time, for this presentation, for your passion, to Unilever, for being part of this, and for everybody that was on this call. We're looking forward to you sharing these links. Please, we'll reach out to us if you'd like a copy of the deck. We'll get that from Colleen shortly, and let's help some people. So thanks so much, everybody.
Take care. Have a great day.
Signing off.
Cheers.